All right, let's try this again.
Am I supposed to be looking at you or the camera?
Both, whatever. It doesn't matter. When we do them, I'm usually just talking to you.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm Allison. I am with Shannon Cunningham. She's with Fairway Mortgage here out of Oxford, Alabama. And I wanted to have her come on the podcast today to talk briefly about how to get a loan. I get clients all the time that ask questions about, they're scared. They're scared to apply for a loan.
Yeah.
I know when I did my first house, I was terrified because I was terrified I was not going to be approved.
Right.
And it was because I didn't have the right mortgage lender to tell me and to walk me through the process. So tell me, how easy is it to get approved?
It's so unbelievably easy. I have a mobile app that's just like every other app on your phone. You download it on your phone. You fill out a quick 5-minute application. It's basic information that you should know off the top of your head.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to provide any documents right then. So you fill out an application, it comes straight to me. And typically within the hour we have you pre-approved. We'll talk about your financing, your comfort zone for your monthly payment. I typically will ask a client, if you walked into your dream house, what is the max monthly payment you would be willing to make?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, okay, what is your comfort zone? What would you like to pay for a monthly house payment?
Yeah.
And then I kind of try to tell them, when you go look at houses, this payment, is your monthly payment, and this is about the price range you're looking at. And then if you walk into your dream house, just know that this is the max that you want to pay for a house to be at your max monthly payment.
Right.
It gives them a little bit of wiggle room, and gives them a little bit of comfort. But on that mobile app also, it has a payment calculator, which is so simple.
Okay.
And it kind of puts the power in the buyer's hands so that they can kind of play around with those payments, and they love that.
Yeah.
It's so easy. There's not a lot of stress to it. The hardest thing is once we get you pre-approved and you find a house and we're collecting your documents, is getting us, 5 different sets of documents. That's really the stress level in it.
Yeah, so tell me, what about a credit score? Tell me, do they have to have a certain credit score to be able to do it? Because I get that question a lot, because I have clients that buy $50,000 houses, and I have clients that buy $1 million house.
Yeah.
So, and it's just kind of all over the board.
So, credit is and has always and will always be risk-based. So it is about credit and credit scores, and I would say, if you want to buy a house, you really need to be in that 600 or above range, to make sure you get a decent interest rate, which is going to affect that monthly payment.
Right.
But, it's not just your interest rate. The risk base goes into, have you been on your job 2 years? When I ask you for a 2-year job history, am I going to get 1 job, 2 jobs, or 5 jobs? If you've had 5 jobs in the last 2 years, obviously you're a little bit of a risk.
Right.
How long have you been at your residence? What is your payment history? Do you have 1 payment that's been over 30 days later? Do you have 5?
Yeah.
The question then becomes to that lender and to whoever's backing that loan is, how much risk are you?
Right.
So, all of that goes into an interest rate. The great thing is, let's say that you're not there. It's my job to tell you exactly what to do to get you there. So even if you don't qualify today, my goal is to say, if you do this, this, and this, I really think within 3 to 6 months you'll be qualified.
Yeah.
And that gives them a path. And, everybody needs, wants, and deserves a path. So for me, that's important, because I don't know what happened in your life to get you to where you are, but my job is to help you recover from it.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where you are with credit score. It is important, but it's not something that you can't recover from.
So what about somebody who's self-employed? Because I know that that's a big thing. Shannon helped one of my clients during COVID, and we were in the process of, she was approved, COVID happened, she's self-employed, and COVID did affect it, and we were like jumping through hoops trying to make it work, and Shannon did make it work. We were able to close this loan, but what do they have to provide?
So for self-employed, we require 2 years federal tax returns, all pages, all schedules. What you will typically find on a self-employed is, a lot of small business owners tend to write off a lot of their income. It's how they survive. And so that's kind of what you're looking for is, are you writing off all your income, or are you still showing an income? I always tell people, I understand that it's really important to write off everything you can because you need that income. But please understand, when you do that, the odds of you ever borrowing money and growing that business are going to be super limited. So we typically take 2 years federal tax returns and go in and kind of analyze those and average out that income. And the economy we're in right now is going to affect that as well. Your expenses are up, your income's down, so it's something that we do for you. And I've had people, that don't qualify because they are writing everything off. And the first thing they say is, how much income do I need to show next year?
Right.
Well, as much as you can and still survive and keep your business open. Because the more income you show, the more you're going to qualify for. So it really depends on how much of a house you want as to how much income you need to show. You can back into those numbers, but there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah. So I had somebody say to me the other day, one of my buyers, have been working with them about a year, and we put in multiple offers on houses, but they are like, nope, not going higher. They're one of those clients, which is fine, but they needed to know that it was going to take a little longer. And I got a phone call from him the other day, and he said, I'm just going to wait until the interest rates go back to 3%. And I'm like, that's not happening. I mean, what do you think?
So, okay, here's my personal opinion, and I follow a lot of the analytical people that do this, but I follow the people that do what I do for a living. I watch the news and listen to the news because I don't do negative. So here is my personal opinion on waiting on interest rates to go down. A 3% interest rate is not typical. It's something that's few and far between, and I personally don't think I'll ever see again in my lifetime. It was great. It was phenomenal. It was really fun if you were a lender and a realtor. I don't see it happening again. Just my personal opinion. What I think is going to happen is we have an inventory problem right now. We don't have enough inventory for the buyers that we have pre-approved. So what's happening is, all the people, rightfully so, who are living in a house right now and really want to sell that house are paying 3%, and they can't rationalize selling that house and buying another house at 6.5%, 7%. I totally get that. But let me tell you what I think is going to happen. Is I think you're going to hold on to that house, and when rates do go back down to what people think is a decent rate, I would love to see 4s. I would love to see 5s at this point. Me too. But what's going to happen is, when that happens, the price of houses is going to skyrocket. You're going to be back in bidding wars with 20 offers on the same house. You're going to be back into offers at 20, 30, and 40,000 above asking. So here's the problem with that is, you buy a house now at 7%. When the interest rates go down, you have the luxury of refinancing that house. Marry the house, date the rate. That's where that's all coming from. What's not going to happen is, when you wait on the interest rate to go down and that house is, skyrocketed in price, you're not going to get to negotiate the price of that house. And when you do buy that house, 2 years, 5 years down the road, again, you're not going to get to renegotiate the price of that house. Which is why, to me, I would buy the house now and refinance the house later, rather than paying $20,000, $30,000, and $40,000 more than what the house would have been right now. Do you agree? I mean,
I totally agree. I totally agree. And that's been something that I've been pushing my clients to do. There are some clients that jump in and they're like, okay, and they listen and they take the advice, and I'm like, you need to talk to the mortgage companies. You need to, be aware of what your options are. You don't have to be stuck at 7-8%.
No,
you just don't. I was talking to my dad the other day, and he said, back in the 80s, it was like a miracle to get something at 8%. He said most stuff was 10-12%. And we're still below that now, but we were so spoiled during that time of getting, my loan myself is 2.6%. I mean, That's low.
Yeah.
That's really low. And we had considered selling just because the equity we had in the house and the money we would make. But I'm like, oh my gosh, we're just going to take that money and pour it back into a house at 7%.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been married, 33 years, and mine and Rob's first house we bought was at 12.5%.
Really?
12.5%. So, I'm at 3.5, I believe, 3.25, but 12.5%. And that it was the given. It just kind of is what it is. It's not something that you can change or I can change. It's kind of like groceries. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And Rob and I survived a 12% interest rate. So, I mean, you will survive.
Yeah.
It may affect the price of house that you look at. But think about it in this thing is, let's say you buy this house and you're paying 7% and your payment's $1,400 a month. Who's to say that 6 months to a year down the road you don't refinance at 4%, and I give you the option to either drop from that $1,400 a month payment to an $800 or $900 a month payment, or take that 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not all bad.
Right.
I mean, if you follow the news and some people on social media, they'll convince you the world's ending tomorrow.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And honestly, we're not getting a lot of pushback on interest rates.
Yeah.
I think people are just used to gas prices and grocery prices and interest rates, and it just kind of is what it is.
I agree.
Don't sweat the things that you can't change.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just want to talk one thing about that I get somebody that calls me and they're ready to buy a house, and there are some realtors that'll do this. I choose not to waste my time doing it because I learned kind of the hard way, and I can be known as being a hardball, but it is what it is. So you tell me your outlook on this. So I got somebody that wants to buy a house. My first question to them is, are you pre-approved? Are you pre-approved? If they say no, I'm not taking them to look at houses. And a lot of realtors will, but there's a lot of realtors that won't. What do you think about that?
Okay, so when I first came into this business, it was very common for realtors to show houses to people that weren't pre-approved. Or to say, I'll show them 2 or 3, but then they have to get pre-approved. I don't see that a ton anymore. I really don't. A lot of realtors are going more towards, now you're always going to have some that will show houses, but a lot of realtors are going towards not, for one, look at it as if I'm selling my house, I don't want you tromping people through my house that aren't pre-approved.
Exactly.
Why?
Yeah.
It would be like you going to work today knowing you may or may not get paid. If your boss called you and said, come to work today and I may or may not be able to pay you.
Right.
So as a buyer, I think you have to, respect that realtor. It is a business and you're here to make money. But not only that, you're here to make sure that your client has all the information before they look at and find a house that they love. Because the last thing you want to do is take somebody into a house, they absolutely fall in love with it, they have no clue what the payment's going to be. Let's say they do get pre-approved, but they're like, I cannot pay that house payment. So now you've taken them into a house they fell in love with and they can't buy it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you have to look at it from all sides, and I think, with education comes realtors realizing that.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, I had a client, and they were approved for, $250,000. Their lender did not tell them what their monthly payment would be. So of course they're wanting to look. They loved the $250,000 house. It was exactly what they wanted. Exactly what they wanted. But when they found out the payment, they're like, "Well, we can't afford that." They could, but they knew that they didn't want to pay that. And I'm like, this is stuff you need to get on the front end, and this is why it's so important to get a loan officer that walks them through the process of how the home buying process works, what your payment's going to be, what your interest rate's going to be. That just makes all the difference in the world.
So first of all, I'm not sure how you went through a lender and got pre-approved and you don't know your house payment.
I know, right?
As a lender, that's scary. So for me personally is I try my best to treat everybody like they are my family, my friend, my child. I love first time home buyers. They have millions of questions, but I never worry about my first time home buyers going into closing, being freaked out or scared or not knowing what they're going into. Because they know the interest rate, they know how much their taxes and insurance are, they know how much their payment is. They pretty much know what they're going to see before they get in there.
Right.
I mean, this is a 30-year mortgage. I don't ever want my client to say, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. So as a lender, you know, whether my client has one question or 500, that's my job. And I don't mind it, because then I don't have an ugly closing and I don't have a realtor that's upset and I don't have a client that's upset, you know, because my client's new going in. And I've done so many calculations for clients. You know, they'll look at this house or see this house online, and I may have to go in and change that loan 20 times to tell them what that payment looks like. But that is my job, and I love what I do, and that's what we should be doing. You know, I have an office phone, but it rolls to my cell phone. I answer my phone 7 days a week. I've had people say to me, I just heard your voicemail for the first time ever, because most people don't get my voicemail. You know, that's one thing that I can tell you about myself, and I work in the professional world, so I know how often it does and does not happen, is I answer my phone, I answer my texts, and I respond to emails. I always do. I always have. For me, it's a respect thing. I had a client call me Sunday that found me on Google, and or Monday, and it was a holiday. And she was like, are you working today? I was like, I work 7 days. And she was like, but are y'all closed today? And I was like, well, the company's closed, but I'm not closed. And she was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, you don't have to be sorry. That's what I'm here for. You have a question now, I'm going to answer it now. And for me, that's what a good lender does. But also, I think it's different for me because I'm a local lender. I grew up here. I'm from here. My entire family lives here. You know, most of my realtors are people that I respect and care a lot about, and I don't ever want a client going back to the realtor saying I was rude or I never answer my phone, and I just don't want that. You know, these are people in the community that I have to face daily. You know, there are online lenders that you can use, yet you don't have their cell number, and they're not going to answer you on off days. But I have to walk the streets and face the realtors and see them in a restaurant, and I want, you know, to be able to hold my head high and know I did what I was supposed to do.
I totally understand. Well, I think that kind of wraps up what we're talking about. Shannon, thank you for taking the time to come and talk to me, and stay tuned. We'll have another episode coming up in the next week. Thanks. Last time me and Ruben got in here, one of my clients from California, he flew in down. We got in here rambling, and before we knew it, it was like 35 minutes.
How long is it supposed to